Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Today we have former client Daryl Wilson, founder and CEO of Wilson Logistics. Daryl, welcome to the Hot Seat.
Thank you, Spencer. Happy to be here.
All right, we're going to heat things up. There's so much that we need to discuss that I know our network is excited to jump into. But before we do that, just take 20 seconds. Tell us a little bit about your company, Wilson Logistics.
Wilson Logistics, we're about a 450 truck company in Stratford, Missouri. Um, we have a local and regional fleet. We have some dedicated and managed fleet business in Southwest Missouri and Dallas. And then a big portion of our fleet operates as a power-only fleet for Prime.
I love it. I love it. All right, with that, let's jump right in. Now, main source of the conversation earlier this year, it was announced that you sold the Western division of Wilson Logistics to Ashley Furniture, and this, was headlines across the industry. Doing a deal with a private carrier. Tell us a little bit about how that came together.
It was really kind of a strange way, I guess, maybe not. Ashley, 3 years prior to that, had been our biggest customer, and through some customer changes, and they were going to relocate a warehouse and didn't, came down when we had reallocated our assets, and we're looking at a way to get them trucks, and we really couldn't. I thought, well, maybe they could own a trucking company that'd help them out. So things just went from then. Obviously, I engaged you guys. You helped us make the connection, and we discussed it. We saw the synergies that a for hire carrier could possibly bring to a private fleet, um, and the other parts of our company that could help their network, and eventually it closed.
Well, I'm sure a lot of folks they have ideas like this in terms of thinking up strategic moves, which this was a very big move, but that maybe that doesn't materialize. Um, what can you tell us about your process of putting this into action? What were some of the things that you were thinking about that were maybe concerns about making a move, making a change, because you're a highly awarded fleet across, well respected in the industry. This was a big move strategically for you to advance the primary operation of the business. What were some of your concerns about whether or not maybe this is something that you want to do?
There were several of them, Spencer. First of all, I'm a youngster, right? So if I sell off part of our fleet, I want to make sure I'm still busy. And it was a challenge, and it took us a while. It took a while to get our head around of how we really could break a fleet in two, or break it in 60/40, which is effectively what we did, and still have two strong companies out of it. And I think that was our first challenge, to see how we were going to do that, and effectively we did do it, and I think it came up with two strong companies out of one strong company. So, um, those were some of our biggest challenges. Obviously, when you look at selling a company that you've been involved in for a long time, you're concerned about how this affect the employees that are going to go with that sale, and pieces like that. Customers too, certainly. Vendors, everybody that would be touched and affected by it.
No, and obviously, roughly 9 months or so into that transaction, um, things seem to be going well for both companies. Is that pretty fair to say?
I think so, Spencer. Yeah, it's going well for us, and from what I understand from the Ashley team, and the ex-Wilson folks are the Ashley team now. I think it's going great for them, and it's a transaction that both sides are very happy it took place.
Well, I love that. So let's back up a little bit, because I think there's so many folks out there that you may be able to identify with this, Daryl. On any given day, they might be a buyer or they might be a seller, just depending on what's going on in the trucking industry. And so, I'm curious, what were some of the things that maybe you took away from your experience of successfully doing this transaction? What were some of the things that you thought were takeaways that maybe other business owners that might go down a similar path? What advice would you give to them?
One thing that kind of had us really prepared for this, Spencer, or at least an idea what we're going to face. We made 5 acquisitions in over 6 years, so we sat on the other side of the table, but we did it enough to understand what we liked and what felt good to us, and I think we also know what looks like a good deal and what doesn't, right? And we don't need anything except good deals, right? That's the only kind anybody wants, and only kind we should all work on. So, as we look at it like that, I think that's how it works out.
Well, I think that's great. I think that's great. So let's transition over to the acquisition side. 5 deals in 6 years. Now that is moving, sir. So right now we're in a place right now that depending on where where you're sitting, some people lean into organic growth. Some people are transitioning to growth via acquisition for the first time. What have been some of the practices that have allowed you to be so successful on the acquisition side?
Um, as far as growth, let me answer that or talk about that first. The best growth is organic growth, right? But it's the slowest growth. And it's so if you want to significantly grow your fleet in an area or a segment, an acquisition is a great way to do that. Um, when we targeted an acquisition, when we came out of the recession, we saw there was a lot of consolidation going on in the industry, and thought that had to be a lot of opportunity along with that. So we just really started looking at acquisitions, watching them, seeing how they took place, and then we went after a couple and didn't quite have everything to pull the trigger. wasn't quite confident enough. We did our first one though in 2014 and had nice success with that and rolled forward. Um, one thing that I think helped us, Spencer, is we were very confident in our business model, right? So we could buy a company that maybe came out of recession and had been on some few rough times, a couple rough years or whatever, and we were confident enough in our business model that we felt like we could come in and we could turn around and we could turn them in quickly. Um, we also one thing that concerns us on acquisitions is safety. You mentioned we're an award-winning safe carrier, and we want to remain that way. So when you make an acquisition, you have to determine pretty quickly if that driver base fits your safety culture. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But we look at all those things when we look at an acquisition. Um, and so then when it came to the buy side or the sell side of things, again we knew what a good deal looked like. We knew we knew how to structure our company or the part we were going to sell that was an attractive, strong concern for them to buy. So I think that all benefited us when it came time.
No, I agree 100%. So one of the interesting things about the transaction with Ashley, of course, it's a private carrier, and part of due diligence was just trying to firm up the thesis about what they believed would be true as far as synergies post transaction and what that looked like. So a lot of the information requests, some were pretty traditional, but some weren't because you're kind of trying to merge two different types of fleets in a model post transaction that would probably be quite a bit different from the way that you're operating the business right now. So lots of information requests, and understandably so. But that's where your team shined tremendously. So what would be your suggestion? Let's just say there's a CFO down the block and an owner, and they're trying to get their ducks in a row to prepare for a future exit. What type of advice would you give those specific individuals as it relates to being, having your financial house in order?
And that's a great point, Spencer, because if we hadn't had audited financials, if we hadn't had our information where we could touch it, because we use it every day on a regular basis, if we hadn't had the information where we could give them the numbers and the actual view of things they wanted to see, we wouldn't have got it closed. And as you know, that was not a small task. So as we manage our businesses every day, we've got to keep our information and our data close to us. We need to manage our businesses. I would, any CFO that's keeping track of things, I think he's going to want to keep every paper that crosses his desk and every number in the company close so he can access it, he can put it together. Um, and that's a task today, right? We have a lot of data come from all directions, but we want to get all the data we can. We save it. We've got some pretty sharp guys that can compile that data and give it to us how we want to see it. And I think that that's something all of us have to take a hard look at in our companies.
I think that's great. I think that's great. So let me transition to kind of looking at the future. Now we're currently as we're recording this, a lot of speculation. Just a lot of volatility as far as what's going on in the freight markets right now. Um, you're an optimist. You and I, we talk about good news. I love it when we get on the phone, and that's typically where we go first. And you're always kind of a glass half full type guy. Where do you see the opportunities as you move forward in the current market?
Spencer, I see opportunities for the well-ran buttoned-up trucking companies that have a strong customer base and didn't jump out and play the spot market hard when that was really tempting and hot, and have that base to work with and continue forward. I think there's room for those guys. There always will be, and I think that When we have a strong spot market and environment that we went through, that lets some bad habits get in the gate, right? Let some bad habits get in companies, and those bad habits will pop up, and some of those companies will move away, and companies that are well ran have an opportunity to grow. And maybe some of those companies that were run differently would be good candidates to join a successful company today.
So very difficult trying to predict the freight market. You can get yourself in a little bit of a trouble there. Um, you've been successful in the space for a long time, Daryl. So what have you found? All kinds of different cycles back and forth, some favorable, some not favorable to the carrier. What has allowed you to be successful over a long period of time as it relates to navigating these unpredictable markets and how best to specifically manage assets during those periods?
Spencer, there's probably no more cyclical business in the trucking industry, right? So I started in 1980 when we had 20% interest rates, or the add-on effective rate was 20% APR. I've been through a whole lots of these ups and downs since then, and again, the tighter you manage your company, if you got an OR that's in the 90 range or low 90s, when these hard times come along, it goes up a few points, but you don't change your business model, you don't change how you operate your business, and when you come to the other side of it, you're ready to propel out of it. That's the opportunity I see, and that's how I think that we certainly how we look at it.
I love that. Now, you guys out there in Springfield, you just opened up a new operation. Is that accurate?
We did, yeah. We built a new terminal. We're really excited about it. We've got a 120-acre facility or piece of land that we're going to build on, and our first step was our management building and our driver training center.
I love that. So, what advice would you give to? Well, let me just like when you think about drivers, and again, you've been awarded in terms of best fleets to drive for, if I'm not mistaken. Um, so, what is it that allows you to continue to have high quality drivers? What culturally, what's happening within Wilson Logistics that allows you to continue to do that?
You can say all kinds of things, and I'll say a few of them, but I think the biggest cultural thing is safety, right? If we want a safe fleet, and we want drivers that want to be safe, and safe drivers want to work with a safe fleet, right? They do. They're concerned about their safety scores. They're concerned about their safety. So we feel like that attracts the best folks in the beginning. We also like to train our drivers, or a high percentage of them. So we think that helps us set that safety standard from the very beginning. That's our goal. The other part of it is, Spencer, and we feel this way. Our drivers have the most important job in our company. Right? I haven't delivered a load of freight on time in lots of decades, and not going to. And our drivers do that. They do it very good, and their job is important, and everybody in our company realizes that. We're their support staff. We're there to serve them.
So, a couple more questions. One of those is going to be a little bit of a wild card, but I'm curious because just being in the industry as long as you've been in it and having success, what do you think about the trailer market right now? What do you think is going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months in those trailer values?
That's a tough one. We've already seen them come down some. The crazy money has came down some. It really depends. I don't know that the trailer OEMs are speeding up a lot. There's maybe signs that they are. I don't know. Things like that normally don't become apparent until they're on top of you. Um, if we find that some of the newer carriers that hopped in business in the last few years with a favorable rate environment, if they start not needing these traders anymore, maybe that affects the market some. But I don't think we see any drastic change. Not for a late model used trailer. Certainly it goes down some, but I don't see it be anything crazy drop.
Well, let me finish with a little bit of a wild card, and thank you for being here, Dale. This has been just so fun to kind of mix it up with you a little bit. Once again, so let's just say, let's fast forward 10 years from now. You've done another 10 acquisitions with Wilson Logistics. Um, and let's just say that you're going to go on a 2 month sabbatical, step totally away from trucking, let your team run it, continue to grow it, continue to acquire, and you've got 3 destination spots in the world. What would be your top 3 choices where you would like to go spend that time?
Oh man, Spencer, I'd probably have to stay in the United States for at least two of them, and one would sure be Missoula, Montana. Um, I could probably go get lost in Key West, Florida for a while. That third one, I don't know. I'd have to think about that one for a little bit.
Well, I love that you're keeping it on the homeland here very much, and I always love Montana, and I love it when our paths cross, Dale. Thank you so much. Obviously, such an honor to serve you and your team through the Ashley Furniture transaction, and I'm so excited about the work that you continue to do, producing excellence, making our industry better. Thank you for being on the hot seat, Daryl. We will see you next time.
Thank you.